Welcome to Founders Night, everyone. We are honored to welcome all of you, students and families, faculty and trustees, alumni and guests, to what is essentially our home, where we, the Woodward School community, continue to strive to do our best work because of that sunshine of loving interest that has filled these rooms since 1894. Tonight we honor our founders, Mary Rowe Greenleaf and Dr. Ebenezer Woodward, for their generosity and vision by celebrating our school's history, education, and educators, and those who came before us who inspire us to learn so we may lead. Our program consists of traditions and performances that tell our story. We caught a glimpse of that story, our history, in our opening, narrated by Woodward's first principal, Carrie E. Small, who breathed life into this home that the Woodwards dreamed for us. Each one of you is now a part of that history, that dream, and this story. Just think of it. You will be featured at a Founders 130 years from now, and those class photos will probably be holograms or something. Now that I have officially and sufficiently blown your mind, we begin our formal program with tradition, Latin declamation with a twist. Please welcome our Latin 3 students, Layla White, Perry Bitter, Logan Joseph, and Nahima Montalban. First, they will recite a short love poem of the Roman poet Catullus. The poem is based on an earlier Greek poem by Sappho, the first female poet, our poet or poetess, in the Western tradition. For the 2 or 3 of you who don't speak Latin fluently, don't worry. They will translate the verse into English as well.
Illa mi par esse Deo videtur, illa si fas es aditidem te, puellae.
Dulce ridentem, misero quod omnis erpit sensus mihi, nam simulte, lesbia espexi, nihil est supermi.
Lingua sed torpid, tenuis sub artis flamma demonat, sonatu suopte tinsnat ares, gemina tiguntur lumina nocte.
Otion catule, tibi molestum est. Otio exaltas, neminumque gestis. Otio et prius regis, et beatas videre urbis.
In English, this means, that guy over there is like a god. If it's okay to say, he's better than a god. He sits across from you and listens and watches to you after you over and over again.
He sees you laughing sweetly, a fact that steals away all of my senses. Oh, poor me, Lesbia, for as soon as I caught sight of you, there's nothing left for me.
My tongue is heavy. A small flame creeps under my skin. My ears make their own unique sound, and my eyes are covered in darkness.
Free time, O Catullus, is bothersome to you. You rejoice in it and enjoy it too much. Free time has destroyed ancient kings and has ruined powerful cities.
Here comes the twist. Here comes the twist. You're the twist. Here comes the twist. Accompanied by Mr. Gudgel, our Latin students will conclude with a more contemporary love song. Remember, the word in Latin for poem, Carmen, can also be translated as song. This one was made popular by Elvis Presley. Thank you, Mr. Gudgel. In our Latin 3 songstresses, Carmen's by Elvis, Timeless. Much like Latin declamation has been tradition at Woodward's founder's celebration since at least 1896, so has poetry recitation. Under the direction of our 8th grade English teacher, Miss Hemmings, this tradition continues. The poem you will hear tonight has become a precious Woodward tradition that connects classes together. Please welcome our class of 2028.
This is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost.
Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village then.
He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow.
My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near.
Between the woods and Frozen Lake, the darkest evening of the year.
He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake.
The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake.
The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep.
And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Thank you, Ms. Hemmings and the class of 2028. At Woodward, we recognize that artistic expression is an inextricable aspect of our humanity. Our upper school ELA lab program, Language and Performance, is where students not only hone their public speaking and presentation skills, they also explore the art of storytelling through multiple mediums by discovering and applying their artistic talents to collaborative as well as individual performance projects. Collaboration is a key component to creating beautiful stories. And Ms. Chameleon, our visual arts instructor, is a critical support system to the students and me in this endeavor. She literally makes dreams come true. Tonight, Tonight, our 11th and 12th grade language and performance students will focus on tradition by storytelling through the art of rhetoric. Aristotle said rhetoric is the faculty of discovering in any particular case all of the available means of persuasion. Rhetoric teaches students to write and speak with purpose, to develop arguments using logic and reason, and to consider one's audience always. Language matters. Words have extraordinary power, and learning to recognize that power and understanding how to wield our words for good is essential in what we strive for. The only way to learn this art form is to study those who have mastered it. Tonight's performances will tell a story that informs and spans our 130-year history through the words of 7 pioneering women. Their common thread? They were and are strong to live, and through their words and actions represent the values that we at Woodward hold dear. History is broad and big and filled with so many stories and people and women whom we should emulate and celebrate. Our lens tonight is teeny tiny, just a sliver of the past. Our goal is to expand that lens a little more each year. So you must return next year to meet even more of these amazing people. And so let us begin. This weekend will mark the 248th anniversary of the British evacuation of Boston on March 17, 1776. When Abigail Adams wrote to her husband, John Adams, 2 weeks later, she shared the uncertainty she felt before the evacuation and expressed a new sense of hope for the future. Knowing that John was busy at Congress arguing for independency, she appealed to her dearest friend to remember the ladies when planning a new government. Our exceptional 12th grader, Leah Terry, shares the letter with us tonight.
write me a letter half as long as I write you. And tell me, if you may, where your fleet are gone. What sort of defense Virginia can make against our common enemy, whether it is so situated as to make a naval defense. I hope that riflemen, who have shown themselves very savage and even bloodthirsty, are not a specimen of the generality of the people. I have sometimes been ready to think that the passion for liberty cannot be equally strong in the breasts of those who have been accustomed to deprive their fellow creatures of theirs. Of this I am certain it is not founded upon that generous and Christian principle of doing to others as we would that others should do unto us. Do not you want to see Boston? I am fearful of the smallpox, or I should have been in before this time. I got Mr. Crane to go to our house and see what state it was in. I find it has been occupied by one of the doctors of a regiment. Very, very dirty, but no other damage has been done to it. The few things which are left in it are all gone. The town in general is left in a better state than we expected, more owing to a precipitate flight than any regard to the inhabitants, though some have discovered a sense of honor and justice, and have left the rent of the homes for which they were, for the owners and the furniture unhurt, or, if damaged, sufficient to make it good. Others have committed abominable ravages. The mansion house of your President Hancock is safe and the furniture unhurt.
Unequivocally one of the most pioneering and courageous women in our nation's history, Harriet Tubman continues to inspire awe generation after generation. After escaping enslavement in Maryland, Harriet would return over a dozen more times to help others escape to freedom. And that was just the beginning. Harriet would help the Union Army during the Civil War, and lesser known, she became a strong advocate for women's suffrage and toured the North giving speeches advocating for women's rights, including right here in Boston. Tonight we will hear an excerpt of a poem written by Margaret Walker in 1944. The editing and delivery were inspired by Maya Angelou's reading of the poem. Our brilliant Brianna Francois, extraordinary Kendall Joseph, and magnificent Nyla Montalban not only honor Harriet, but also Margaret Walker and Maya Angelou.
Darker the face of Harriet, darker still her fate. Deep in the dark of southern wilds, deep in the slaver's hate.
Fiery the eye of Harriet, fiery, dark, and wild. Bitter, bleak, and hopeless is the bondage child.
How far is the road to Canada? How far do I have to go? How far is the way to Maryland and the hatred that I know?
Done shook the dust of Maryland clean off my weary feet. I'm on my way to Canada and freedom's golden street. I'm bound to get to Canada before another week. I come through swamps and mountains, I waded many a creek.
Now tell my brothers yonder that Harriet is free. Yes, tell my brothers yonder no more oxen walk for me.
Come down from that mountain, Harriet. Come down to the valley at night. Come down to your weeping people and be their guiding light. Sing, deep river. Don't you want to cross over today? Sing, deep river. Don't you want to walk on freedom's way?
I slow down in the nighttime, I come back in the day. I slow back to my Maryland to guide the slaves away.
You better run, brave Harriet.
There's a ransom on your head.
You better run, Miss Harriet.
They want you alive or dead.
I've been down the valleys yonder and searching round the stills. They got a posse after you, or riding through the hills.
They got bloodhounds smelling. They got their guns cocked too. You better run, bold Harriet. The white man's after you. They got $10,000.
Put on your coal black head.
They'll give $10,000.
They're mad because you fled. I'm Harriet Tubman, people. I'm Harriet the slave. I'm Harriet free woman, and I'm free beyond my grave.
Come along with Harriet, children. Come along to Canada. Come down from the river, children, and follow the northern star.
I found my way to Canada with hundreds more beside.
Come along to Harper's Ferry. Come along with Great John Brown. Come along with Harriet, children, and come 10 million strong.
I met the mighty John Brown. I know Fred Douglass too, enlisted abolitionists beneath the Union blue. I heard the mighty trumpets that set our land to war. I mourned for Mr. Lincoln and saw his funeral car.
Come along to freedom, children. Come along 10 million strong. Come along with Harriet, children, and come 10 million strong.
I'm Harriet Tubman, people.
I'm Harriet the slave.
I'm Harriet free woman,
and I'm free beyond my grave.
the 1890s, when students at Woodward were taking their once weekly News of the Day class with Principal Carrie E. Small, Ida B. Wells was writing it. Born into enslavement in 1862, Ida B. Wells would go on to be a teacher, a suffragist, and a journalist. Tonight you will hear what she believed the requisites necessary for men and women to be true leaders, performed by our exceptional Eden Logan.
Mr. President, I do not know how the subject which has been given me is to harmonize with the aims of this association, unless it be that it recognizes the race whose youth we are engaged in teaching is without the one great essential of elevation and progress, true leadership. And that from the schools and colleges here represented must come the true leaders of the people. The main requisites of such leadership are first, devotion to principle and courage of conviction. No great reform in the world's history has ever been successful and far-reaching in its influence without an earnest, steadfast devotion which so takes hold of its leaders that they willingly brave the world's censure. Aye, even death itself in its defense. Owen Lovejoy died in defense of the freedom of the press, and brave old John Brown's blood was shed at Harper's Ferry in advocacy of liberty, of whom his son truly says he gave noble life for a mighty sentiment. Their deaths were not in vain. They not only wrote their name in the highest niche in the temple of fame, but added impetus to the cause of liberty and Christianity. As Christ died to make men holy, so they died to make men free. This devotion to principle does not always call for life, but it always means sacrifice of some kind. No man does great things without great sacrifice. No cause was ever victorious against evil for which men and women have not lived and suffered and died. And the true power for sacrifice has been that they dared to look beyond the paltry, visible surroundings of that cause. It was this which dragged William Lloyd Garrison through the streets of Boston at the heels of a howling mob. No one is a true leader who, to save himself in defense of right, speaks no matter what its apparent cost. The earnest devotion of pulpit, schoolroom, and workshop is absolutely necessary in leading people to elevation. Perseverance is the next great element entering into true leadership. Patient, persistent, intelligent effort brings all things to pass, as shown by the abolition movement, temperance, and other reforms which were scoffed and jeered at the outset. It is this which brought us the cable, steam engine, electric motor, cotton gin, sewing machines, and other great inventions in the material world, the work of tireless, persistent activity. And these constant efforts will wear away the barriers which impede race progress. The greatest test of character is the ability to stand prosperity. In moments of success which comes to earnest, devoted souls, comes also the temptation to use power and influence for selfish and ambition, or turning away from the paths of virtue. Our would-be leaders need especially to cultivate self-control. And while devotion to principle and courage of conviction, perseverance and patience and self-control are the predominating requisites of true leadership, over and above them all, embodying the truest leadership, is a deep, abiding love for humanity. It is this which inspires devotion to principle, ennobles perseverance, gives the patience and tenderness so necessary in dealing with ignorance, superstition, and envy, and strengthens and encourages self-control. Only in proportion as we do is our leadership true.
Dr. Reverend Anna Howard Shaw was the most amazing person most of you have never heard about. Anna Howard Shaw attended Boston University School of Theology in 1878. She became one of the first ordained female ministers in the country, although she was not able to practice in Massachusetts because she was a woman. She also attended BU's medical school, but never practiced because she took up the cause for temperance and suffrage. We will hear excerpts from her 1915 speech, The Fundamental Principle of a Republic, performed by our awesome Audria Crya and sensational Savannah Utze.
came into your hall tonight, I thought of the last time I was in your city, 21 years ago with Susan B. Anthony, and we came here for the exact same purpose as to which we are here tonight. Boys have been born since that time and have become voters, while women are still trying to persuade American men to believe in the fundamental principles of democracy. For the only thing women enfranchisement means at all is that a form of government which claims to be a republic should be a republic and not an aristocracy. Now, the difficulty with discussing this with those who oppose us is that they can make any number of arguments, but none of them have anything to do with women's suffrage. They always have something to do with something else.
Therefore, the arguments which we have to make rarely ever have anything to do with the subject, because we have to answer our opponents, who always escape the subject as far as possible in order to have any sort of reason in connection with what they say. When suffragists are feminists, and when I ask what that is, no one is able to tell me. They say, "Would you like to be a feminist?" If I could find out, I would. You either have to be masculine or feminine, and I prefer feminine. Then they cry out that we are socialists and anarchists. Just how a human can be both at the same time, I really do not know. If I know what socialism means, it means absolute government, and anarchism means no government at all. So, we are feminists, socialists, anarchists, and Mormons or spinsters. Now, as a matter of fact, as a unit, we are nothing. As individuals, we are like all other individuals. We have our theories, our beliefs. But as suffragists, we have but one belief, one principle, one theory, and that is the right of a human being to have a voice in the government under which he or she lives. On that we agree, if on nothing else.
I was approached by a young married woman in New Jersey. She left her husband home for 3 months to tell women that their place was at home, and they could not leave home long enough to go to the ballot. And she brought out all her arguments in pairs and then backed them up by statistics. And the anti-suffragists can gather more statistics than any person I ever saw. And there's nothing so sweet and calm as when they say, "You cannot deny this, because here are the figures, and figures never lie." Well, they don't, but some liars figure.
When they start out, they always begin the same. She started by proving that it was no use to give the women the ballot, because if they did have it, they would not use it. And she had statistics to prove it.
If we would not use it, then I cannot see the harm in giving it to us.
Then the young lady, unfortunately for her first argument, proved by statistics, of which she had many, the awful results which happened where women did have the ballot. What awful laws had been brought about by women's vote, the conditions that prevail in the homes, and how deeply women get interested in politics.
Because women are hysterical. We just forget our families, cease to care for our children, cease to love our husbands. Just go down to the polls and vote. Keep on voting 10 hours a day, 365 days in a year. Never let up. If you get us to the polls once, you will never, and I mean never, get us home. So that women will vote and then will do anything but vote. And then they'll go on to say, if women vote, it'll be a great expense. And they'll just vote as their husbands do.
Even if we have no husbands, that would not affect the result, because we would vote just as our husbands would vote if we had one.
How I wish the anti-suffragists can make men believe that. If they can make men believe that women would just vote as they do you think we'd have to make another speech or hold another meeting? Women would just have to vote whether they wanted to or whether not at all.
And then the very one that will tell you that women will vote just as their husbands do will tell you in 5 minutes that women will not vote just as their husbands will. And the discord in the homes, and the divorce.
I was talking to a man in California, and when he was speaking, I had this lovely thing pass through my mind, because he said he and his wife had lived together for 20 years and never had a difference of opinion. He went on to say he was afraid if women got the vote, then his wife would vote differently from him. And that whole time he was talking, I couldn't help but wonder, who was the idiot? Because I knew no two intelligent human beings could live together for 20 years and not have a difference of opinion. I looked at that splendid type of manliness and thought, how would a man feel being tagged up by a little woman going, me too, me too?
Then the other believed that the women would not vote if they had a vote and would not do anything else.
And would vote as their husbands and would not vote as their husbands.
That women have so many burdens that they cannot bear another burden, and that women are the leisure class.
That we have not the time, and we are so burdened that we just can't have any other burdens.
Then, if that is so, I think we ought to allow the women to vote instead of the men. Since we pay a man anywhere from a third to a half more than we do women, it would be better to use up the cheap time of the women instead of the dear time of the men.
And speaking of time, you would have thought it'd take a week to vote. My dear, dear friend in Omaha said, Miss Shaw, and she held up her baby in her arms. Miss Shaw, is this not my job? I said, why, it certainly is. How can I neglect my baby and go to the polls? I said, has your husband a job? Why, you know he has. I did know. He was a banker and a very busy one at that. I said, and your husband has to leave his job in order to go vote? She said, oh yes, he is very interested in the election. I said, what an advantage you have over your husband. He has to leave his job, and you can just take your job with you. You don't need to neglect your job. Isn't it strange the only time a woman might forget her baby is on election day? And then the dear old antis will throw up their hands and say, you have neglected your baby.
A woman can belong to a whist club. She can go once a week and play whist. She cannot bring her baby along with her. She can go to the theater, to church, or a picnic, and no one is worrying about the baby. But to vote, and everyone cries out about the neglect. You would think on election day that a woman just grabbed up her baby and started off and just dropped it somewhere and paid no attention to it. When we had the question box, it used to be asked, who will take care of the babies? I did not know what person could be got to take care of all the babies, so I thought I would go out west and find out. I went to Denver and I found that they took care of their babies just the same on election day as they did on every other day. They took their baby along with them. When they went to put a letter in a box, they took their baby along. When they went to put their ballot in a box, they took their baby along.
If a mother was standing in line and her baby got restless, she would simply joggle the go-kart. And if when she went to go in to vote, then there was a neighbor, and they would simply joggle the go-kart. And if there was no neighbor, then there was the candidate, and he would joggle the go-kart.
That is one day in the year when you can get 100 people to take care of any number of babies. I have never worried about the babies on election day since that time.
Now, what does it matter whether women will vote as their husbands or will not? Whether they have the time or have not? Whether they will vote for prohibition or not? What does this have to do with the fundamental principles of democracy? We have not yet discovered.
But they cannot argue on that. They cannot argue on the fundamental basis of our existence. So they have to get off on all these side tricks to get anything approaching an argument.
If women vote, will they go to war? They're great on having us fight. I was speaking in North Dakota on an automobile in front of a great crowd, and a great number of men gathered around a single man sitting in front of a storefront whittling a stick. He called out to another man, if women vote, will they go and fight the Germans? I said, why should we go and fight the Germans? If they come over here, would y'all fight? Why should we have to fight a bunch of men? But if Germany were to send over an army of women, we'd show you what we do. We'd say, come on, let's go to the opera house and discuss this matter. It would grow wearisome, but it wouldn't be death.
Would it not be better if the heads of the governments in Europe had talked things over? What might have happened to the world if a dozen men had gotten together to settle the awful controversy, which is today decimating the nations of Europe? We women got together there last year, over in Rome, the delegates from 28 different nations of women. We were there to discuss the things that were of vital importance to us all. And at the end of those 2 weeks, after the discussions were over, we passed a great number of resolutions, but 2 of them were passed unanimously. One was presented by myself as chairman on the Committee on Suffrage, and on that resolution, we called upon all civilizations of the world to give to women equal rights with men, and there was not a dissenting vote. The other resolution was on peace. We believed then, as many of us believe today, notwithstanding all the discussion that is going on, we believe, and we will continue to believe, that preparedness for war is an incentive to war, and the only hope of permanent peace is the scientific and systematic disarmament of all the nations of the world. And we passed a resolution, and passed it unanimously to that effect.
No, we women do not want the ballot so that we may fight.
But we do want the ballot in order that we may help men to keep from fighting.
Whether it is in the home or in the state, just as the home is not without the man.
So the state is not without the woman, and you can no more build up homes without men than you can build up the state without women.
We are needed everywhere where human problems are to be solved.
Men and women must go through this world together from the cradle to the grave. It is God's way and the fundamental principle of a republican form of government.
Fast forward to 1994, and we will hear Anna Howard Shaw's sentiments reach a global stage with First Lady Hillary Clinton's speech to the World Women's Conference in Beijing, China. Tonight we will hear an excerpt from that speech performed by our exceptional Hadley Duncan.
This is truly a celebration. A celebration of the contributions that women make in every aspect of life. In the home, on the job, in their communities, as mothers, wives, sisters, daughters, learners, workers, citizens, and leaders. It is also a coming together. Much in the way every woman comes together every day in every country. We come together in fields and in factories, in village markets and in supermarkets, in living rooms and in boardrooms. Whether it is while playing with our children in the park, washing our clothes in a river, or taking a break at the office water cooler, we come together and talk about our aspirations and concerns. And time again, our talk turns to our families and our children. However different we may be, there is far more that unites us than divides us. We share a common future. And we are here today to find that common ground so that we may help bring new dignity and respect to women and girls all over the world, and in doing so, bring new strength and stability to their families as well. It is conferences like this that compel governments and peoples everywhere to look, to listen, and face the world's most pressing problems. What we are learning around the world is that if women are healthy and educated, their families will flourish. If women are free from violence, their families will flourish. If women have the opportunity to work and earn as equal partners in society, their families will flourish. And when families flourish, communities and nations flourish. That is why every man, every woman, every child, every nation on our planet has a stake in the discussion that takes place here tonight. Over the past 25 years, I have worked persistently on issues pertaining to women, families, and children. Over the past 2.5 years, I have had the opportunity to learn more about the challenges facing women in my own country and around the world. I have met new mothers in Jakarta, Indonesia, who come together regularly in their village to discuss nutrition, family planning, and baby care. I have met working parents in Denmark who talk about the comfort that they feel in knowing their children can be cared for in safe, nurturing, and creative after-school centers. I have met women in South Africa who helped to lead the struggle to end apartheid and who are now working to build a new government. I have met with the leading women of the Western Hemisphere who are working every day to promote literacy and better health care for the children of their country. I have met women in India and Bangladesh who are taking out small loans to buy milk, cows, rickshaw, thread, and other materials to create a better livelihood for themselves and for their families. I have met doctors and nurses in Belarus, Ukraine, who are trying to keep children alive in the aftermath of Chernobyl. The great challenge of this conference is to give voice to women everywhere, whose experiences go unnoticed, whose words go unheard. As an American, I want to speak for the women of my own country. Women who are raising children on minimum wage, women who cannot afford health care or child care, women whose lives are threatened by violence, including violence in their own homes. Speaking to you today, I speak for them. Just as each of us speaks for women around the world, women who are denied the right to see a doctor, or get an education, own property, or have a say in the direction of their lives simply because they are women. We need to understand that there is no formula for how women should lead their lives. It is why we must respect the choices each woman makes for herself and for her family. We also must recognize that until women will never be given full dignity until their human rights are respected and protected. The international community has long acknowledged and recently affirmed at Vienna that both women and men are entitled to a range of personal freedoms and rights. From the right to personal security to the right to determine the number and the spacing of the children they bear. Nobody should be forced to remain silent for fear of religious or political prosecution, abuse, arrest, or torture. If there is one message that rings forth from this conference, let it be that women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights. It is time now to stand for the women. Let me be clear. Freedom means the right to assemble, organize, and debate openly. It means respecting the views of those who may disagree with the views of their government. It means not taking citizens away from their loved ones, jailing them, mistreating them, and taking away their dignity simply because they express their ideas and opinions in a peaceful manner. Let this conference be our, and the world's, call to action. And let us heed the call so that we may create a world in which women are given full respect and dignity, boys and girls are treated and loved, and every family has the hope of a strong, stable future. Thank you.
Barbara Jordan was the first Black woman from Texas elected to the House of Representatives. At her funeral in 1996, former Texas Governor Ann Richards said this about her: "In a world that sways on the winds of trends and pulls and prognostications, she was a constant and she was as true as the North Star. Barbara Jordan was an American original and a national treasure, and she was my friend." I know that at some point I'm supposed to say that despite all the public acclaim that Barbara was really just like everybody else. But that would be wrong. No matter what else was going on, when you were with Barbara, you could never quite shake that feeling that you were in the presence of somebody that was truly great. Tonight, we will hear an excerpt from Barbara's inspiring 1976 speech, Who Then Will Speak for the Common Good, performed by our inspiring Nyla Montalban.
It was 144 years ago that members of the Democratic Party first met convention to select a presidential candidate. Since that time, Democrats have continued to convene once every 4 years, and our meeting this week is a continuation of that tradition. But there's something different about tonight. There's something special about tonight. What is different? What is special? I, Barbara Jordan, am a keynote speaker. A lot of years have passed since 1832, and it would have been most unusual for any national political party to ask that a Barbara Jordan deliver a keynote address. But tonight, here I am. And I feel that notwithstanding the past, that my presence here is one additional bit of evidence that the American dream need not forever be deferred. Now that I have this grand distinction, what in the world am I supposed to say? I could list many problems which Americans have. Problems which could cause people to feel cynical, angry, frustrated. Problems which include the lack of integrity in government, the feeling that the individual no longer counts, the reality of material and spiritual things, and the feeling that the grand American experiment is failing or has failed. I can recite these problems and sit down and offer no solutions, but I'm not sure to do that either. The citizens of America expect more. They deserve and they want more than recital of problems. We are people in the quandary about the present. We are people in search of our future. We are people in search of a national community. We are people trying not only to solve the problems of the present, unemployment, inflation, but we are attempting on a larger scale to fulfill the promise of America. We are attempting to fulfill our national purpose, to create a society in which all of us are equal. And now we look to the future. Let us heed the voice of the people and recognize their common sense. If we do not, we ignore the common ties that bind all Americans. Many fear the future. Many are distrustful of their leaders and believe that their voices are never heard. Many seek only to satisfy their private work wants, to satisfy their private interests. But this is the great danger America faces, that we will cease to be one nation and become instead a collection of interest groups. City against suburb, region against region, individual against individual, each seeking to satisfy private wants. If that happens, who then will speak for America? Who then will speak for the common good? This is the question which must be answered in 1976. We must address and face the future together. It can be done if we restore the belief that we share a common community, that we share a common national endeavor. It can be done. Let each person do his or her part. If one citizen is unwilling, then all of us are going to suffer. For the American idea, though it is shared by all of us, it is recognized in each one of us. I have confidence that we can form that kind of national community. I have that confidence.
We conclude our storytelling with words that may be familiar to most, but will be remembered for generations to come. Our outstanding star Pierre and Jarvia Ramos perform Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade?
The loss we carry, a sea we must wade.
We brave the belly of the beast. We learn that quiet isn't always peace.
In the norms and notions of what just is, isn't always just this.
And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it.
Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean
we are striving to form a union that is perfect.
We are striving for a union with purpose.
To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man.
So we lift our gazes to not what stands between us,
but what stands before us.
We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside.
We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another.
We seek harm to none and harmony for all.
Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true.
That even as we grieved, we grew.
That even as we hurt,
we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious.
Not because we will never again know defeat.
Because we will never again sow division.
Scripture tells us to envision.
That everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid.
That if we're to live to our own time, then victory won't line the blade, but in all of the bridges we've made.
That is the promise to Glade.
The hill we climb if only we dare it.
Because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the path we step into and how we repair it. We see in a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it.
That would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy, and this effort very nearly succeeded.
So while democracy can periodically be delayed, it can never be permanently defeated.
In this truth,
in this faith, we
trust.
For while we have our eyes on the future,
history has eyes
on us.
In this era of just redemption, we feared its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power.
To author a new chapter.
To offer hope and laughter.
To ourselves. So while we ask, how can we possibly prevail over catastrophe?
Now we assert, how can catastrophe possibly prevail over us?
So we will not march back to what was,
but move to what shall be.
A country that is bruised but whole,
benevolent but bold,
fierce and free. We would not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation.
Because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation.
Our blunders become their burden.
And if one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might,
and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright.
So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left.
With every breath of my bronze-pounded chest, we will turn this wounded world into a wanderer's one.
We will rise from the golden hills of the west.
We will rise from the windswept northeast where our forefathers first realized revolution.
We will rise from the lakefront cities of the Midwestern states.
We will rise from the sun-baked south.
We will reconcile, recover, and rebuild in every known nook of our nation.
In every corner called our country, our people. Diverse and beautiful will emerge battered and beautiful.
When the day comes, we will step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it.
For if there is always light, if only, we're brave enough to see it, if only,
we're brave enough to be it.
To be it.
Another round of applause for our storytellers. Each year, 11th grade students from Mr. Gilday's U.S. History course spend months researching and developing a 10-page thesis-driven argument on a topic of their choosing. Tonight is the culmination of that process with the awarding of the Susan Martin Hayes Scholarship. Ms. Hayes was a beloved history teacher at Woodward from the late 1970s till 1998. Ms. Hayes institutionalized the Founders Paper as a rite of passage for the junior class. Upon her sudden passing, members of the Woodward community endowed 2 scholarships in Ms. Hayes' name, one going to the Founders Night winning paper, and the other will be awarded later this year to a graduating senior. Can I have the envelope, please? Okay, I don't know yet because I'm just gonna read because there are a lot of words. The winner of the 2024 Susan Martin Hayes Scholarship is Savannah Utze. Just stay there, okay? Yeah, just stay there, and I'm gonna talk to them about you.
Oh, yay!
For her essay titled "Quakers in Mental Health in America: While researching the biographies of reformers in the field mental health, you got to practice these things. While researching the biographies of reformers in the field of mental health, reformers like Benjamin Rush and Thomas Story, Kirkbride, Savannah noticed many of the reformers were Quaker. Upon this realization, Savannah pivoted to explore this unlikely nexus. The result is the story of a persecuted religious group forced to flee their homeland. Despite continued persecution in a new world, they would dare to see every person as possessors of an inner light. According to their beliefs, this light makes all humans worthy of respect and dignity. Quakers challenged this new American society to treat all marginalized groups, like those suffering mental illness, as equals. We applaud Savannah for shedding light on Quakers' unique role in making our society more just.
And a book.
Wait, what?
Awesome. I didn't cry this year. I tear up at award shows. So, for the Christina Cutler Coots presentation, I'd like to invite Rick Cutler to the stage.
Before I start, can we just get a hand for all of these young women? Amazing. Amazing. I have notes. I could never remember it all, so I gotta... good evening. So tonight, I'd like to tell you why I've come here every year for the past 40-odd years to present this award at Founders Night. The award is named after my late sister, who sadly passed away at the young age of 22. Chris was smart. She was well-read and a good straight-A student all through grade school. But when she went off to junior high, the social pressures were just too much for her. My parents decided the best thing for her would be to go to a private school, so they enrolled her here at Woodward. There she met Eileen Jacobs, who later became a longtime board member and the person who created this award. A lot of you know Eileen. Eileen and Chris became fast friends when Chris first started attending Woodward in the 9th grade. They were inseparable all through school and beyond and spent many hours talking about and planning their future lives. But things in life can take a turn. And during her senior year, Chris got pregnant. Our family rallied behind Chris, as did Eileen and her family. But most importantly, the Woodward community did as well. It was a different world in the 1960s. And so Chris went away to a home for unwed mothers. Woodward not only stood by her, but they also made sure that she kept up with her studies so she could graduate with her class. She'd been a member of the National Honor Society and was a proud member of the class of 1969. But at such a young age, it was just too much for her to think about raising a little boy. So she put him up for adoption. I saw him once when he was 3 days old. After graduation, she attended Bridgewater State College and also met her future husband. They married and had a beautiful daughter, my niece Katie. Sadly, for Chris, the future was cut short, and she passed away just shy. Of her 22nd birthday. A number of years ago, Eileen decided to do something to honor and preserve her friend's memory, and so created the Christina Cutler Coots Award. I should also mention that Eileen is Katie's godmother and watched over her all these years. Katie has grown to be a wonderful woman and has a family of her own. And a few years ago, I was contacted by a man who said he was pretty sure I was his uncle. We met, I told him about his birth mother, showed him family photos, and he was so glad we found each other after all these years. Tonight I am proud to say that both my niece Katie and my nephew Joe are here with me to celebrate this moment. I still miss my sister dearly, but I also learned that life is short. There are no guarantees, and we never know how much time we have, so we must always make the most of each and every day. Every year, the award is presented to some department or aspect of Woodward that will benefit the funds in some way. I have attended every year since the inception and have always felt wonderful about how the award has been directed. It is my honor to present this year's award, which will be used to fund a field trip for the upper school to the Boston Science Museum. Congratulations, and thank you again to the Woodward School for all you did for my sister, all you've done for the students over the years, and all they do for you here this evening. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mr. McGay. I'm the head of school at the Woodward School, and boy, you can't see anything from up here. It's amazing. You know, it's such a joy to come to work here every day, and these young women are amazing, and I'm just continually impressed day after day. It's amazing how talented they are and how much poise they have and how much courage to come up here on stage and stand in the spotlight and pour themselves out for all of you to see. It's truly remarkable. It's a really special night, as you know. Thank you, Rick. It's been great getting to know you over the years, and you're such a great friend to Woodward. We really appreciate you and your family and all that you do for us. And I wanted to share one more story before we send you home. And this fall, we received a donation to the annual fund from an alum from the class of 57, from Betty Linsky. And I was like, ooh, 57 from New Hampshire. I said, I have to reach out to her. So I gave her a call to thank her for her gift to support our students in our school. We have a lot of alums that give back to Woodward, and we appreciate that so very much. And so we had a great conversation, and she asked about how things are going at the school. And she had talked about this poem that they used to read and recite back here in the 50s, but she couldn't remember it. So she promised that she would look it up and she would send it to me when she found it. So in a couple months go by, and in January I received this letter from her again, and she found the poem. And it's short but sweet, and we really got a chuckle out of it when we read it. So it goes like this. Root toot toot. We are the girls of the Institute. We don't smoke, and we don't swear, and we don't go with boys who do. You may think we don't have fun. We don't. And that is all. So before we go, we've given our performers and our guests a round of applause, but how about Miss Toomey putting this together? And all the faculty for all their support and in preparing for tonight, and staff, thank you very much to all of you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. So that concludes our evening. Thank you very much, and safe drive home tonight. Thank you, and good night.